Okay. Third time's a charm. Hopefully I won't accidentally show credentials this time. Okay, so my name is Matt. Today we're going to be going over AWS Lambda Toolkit version 0.1, the latest update, which is I just released a couple days ago, and it's awesome. And I think if you do a lot of node-based Lambda development, you're really going to like it. So I'm here with Dottie, who's going to be helping me out, making sure I don't show any credentials again this time. Didn't do a good job of that last time, but it's okay. All right, so so there. If you haven't seen the last video, the AWS Lambda Toolkit is a node module that just makes development of AWS Lambdas that are node based on your local machine a lot easier. So what I mean by that is it provides you with a auto bundler and deployer, and it also provides you with a local test environment for you to test your Lambdas, so you don't wind up with 500 billion versions just because the only way you can update your Lambdas is on AWS via their web editor or something like that. So that's the headlines. This new version just adds a little bit more functionality to it. But before we get into that, I want to mention I will be at the Circuit Developer Conference in Chicago next month, July 27th, 28th. And I'm going to be speaking on the AWS Lambda Toolkit. And I'm going to be just kind of talking about why it was made, how it works, and how it can make things easier. So it's basically going to be my last video, just live, and you can ask questions and stuff afterwards if you're into that sort of thing. So that's going to be really cool. Super excited. My talk is going to be in between two of my colleagues' talks on AWS Internet of Things. So that's Pat McLaughlin and Paul McLeod. So they're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the AWS Lambda Toolkit. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great time. We're building a game for the conference, which is absolutely awesome. And I highly recommend, if you are going, to make sure you get the game, because it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And if you can't go, unfortunately, you won't be able to play the game. But if you do want a taste of it, definitely head over to my Twitch channel, where I stream some of the game development. So I will put the links to both Circuit and my Twitch channel in the description. But anyway, let's move on and let's get to the good stuff, the toolkit updates. So there are two main updates to the toolkit. The first being all of the configuration stuff has been moved into their own separate configuration files. Now, previously, you'd either pass properties in your task runner file, so your gulp file, your task.js, if you're just doing like an npm as your task runner. And so before you pass properties in there, or there was some properties you could author in the package.json file. All that, I mean, you can still pass properties in. It's not recommended though, but it is still available to you if you really want to go that route. Now all that stuff is moved into two dot files, so both of them have very specific uses. One is the AWS Toolkit config, and the other one is AWS credentials. Credentials, self-explanatory. It's your secret and your access key. It's a dot file. It's a JSON file, and so you can easily ignore it and not have to worry about exposing your credentials in your GitHub repo or something like that. So that's really great. And then the other one provides kind of more of the actual configuration to make sure that your Lambda makes it to AWS properly, and make sure that the toolkit knows where your test data is. So that's actually what we're looking at right now, and so we can just jump right on into it. In fact, I am going to hop on over to the Readme, because it has a lot more descriptive content in regards to all the properties available to you. So, like I said, it is a simple JSON file. Pretty much not everything in it is required. The bare minimum, if you've already got a Lambda that's already deployed, and you're not doing any of the testing, this essentially just needs two properties, name and region. Name is a direct correlation to your AWS Lambda's function name. And so if you're building this for the first time, you haven't created on AWS, you are going to have to take the same considerations when naming it as you would on the AWS console. And then if you're kind of matching one up that's already been deployed, you have to make sure you get that function name correct. Region, pretty self-explanatory. That's just going to be the region that you're using. Next up, which is required for Lambda creation, is the handler. Now, the handler is essentially the name of the JavaScript file that is your Lambda .handler. So instead of .js, .handler. And that's the best way to describe that. That's what tells AWS this is what you use for the Lambda. Next up is role. Role is the ARN that you're going to use for the permissions for your Lambda. So this is obviously not an actual ARN, but you just go in, grab your role ARN, paste it in, good to go. The description is optional. That's pretty self-explanatory. If you want a more human-readable name or descriptive text on the AWS console, that's your guy. Next up, we've got ignores. This is an array of paths that you do not want bundled up and sent over to AWS. So, say you've got unit tests you're doing locally, as well as the typical test data that you're piping through using the toolkit. Say that's all in this testing directory right here, and you don't want that pushed up. Now, out of the box, the toolkit isn't going to include any dev dependencies, so you don't have to worry about those. But there might be other files that you just do not care. You know, they're not necessary, so why include them? You toss those inside of this array, and all of those get tacked onto the array that is handling all of the bundling of your Lambda. So anything you add there will be excluded from the bundled version of your Lambda. So that's super cool. Next up, we've got tests. Now, this used to be test data in the package.json. Exact same object, just moved over into this file and renamed to tests. So it's just an object with key value pairs of the kind of like descriptor of the test, like what should happen, and the actual, the value being the actual path to that JSON file that you want to use for the request. So if you're going to be using the testing, this is where you toss those. And surprisingly enough, that's all there is for the AWS Toolkit config file. So it's pretty lightweight. Depends on how you're using it. This is like a full-on using every single bit of it example. But like I said, if you're really just using it to maintain your Lambda that you've already deployed, it's really lightweight. You've only got two properties in there. It's no big deal. So the second file is optional, and that's the AWS credentials file. Now the AWS credentials file is a JSON file for your AWS credentials. Now I don't recommend that you use this file. I highly recommend using the AWS CLI, because with the CLI, you also get management of your credentials. You get it stored, you get it accessible globally by any script using the AWS SDK on your machine, and you get the credentials stored in a private file in your home your user's home directory. So I'd personally recommend that route, but if you really just don't want to deal with it, this is a great option, because it's just a simple dot file with your key in it, and then you can toss it in git ignore, and you don't have to worry about anything. So you've got both of those options. If you really want to, you can pass it in as a property, but I highly recommend that unless you're using, unless you've got a private Git repo. Otherwise, Amazon will send you angry letters, emails saying, hey dude, you've given away your stuff. So yeah, those are the two configuration files, and then they kind of lead into the auto creation of the Lambda if it doesn't exist yet. So when you first deploy your Lambda, obviously if it doesn't exist on AWS yet, AWS is going to come back and be like, dude, I can't update this. I don't know what this is. And so in that case, when it comes back and says that, the toolkit will be like, oh, snaps, I should probably fix that for you. So the toolkit will go ahead and use the AWS SDK and automatically create that Lambda, pushing up the files with it. So let's see this in action. All right, so node test.js. Let's go ahead and test. Make sure everything's all good. Yep, everything's looking good. We're using the same goofy file we did last time. It was definitely not yesterday. And so I've done this a couple times now, but I've deleted it. So when I hit deploy, it's going to be automatically creating this for me up on AWS. So let's go ahead and hit return. So it installs all the NPM modules, bundles everything up, generates the list of modules to ignore, continues bundling everything up, and then once that's finished, it tries to upload it. You'll see here, whoops, there we go. You'll see here, it's like, whoops, that Lambda doesn't exist yet. Let's go ahead and fix that, and boom, it's fixed. So it also returns you your handler, the function arm, the role, SHA-256, bundle size, so all great information. And then if you were to make another change, I messed something up. I've got to make a change. Change. Go ahead and hit deploy again, and boom. So yeah, so you can see how many times I've redone this. So yeah, it does go through the same process again, except this time instead of creating it, it's just going to version it and deploy that bundle to AWS. And now this function is available on AWS, and did that in, just a couple minutes. Super simple, super easy. And yeah, hopefully if you do a lot of node-based Lambda development, hopefully you'll find this super useful. I know we've been finding it super useful, so I'm really excited with kind of the way it's gone. If you've seen the last video, you'll note that last time I said that auto creation of Lambdas was on the back burner because when I first made this toolkit, there was a lot more configuration involved to make that happen. But it looks like they've changed things a little bit now, and it's not as in depth as it was before. And so it was kind of like, it's three more configuration properties, but really it's not that bad. You're not having to author like 500 million properties just to get it to create. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the module. If you haven't used the module yet, I hope you use it, and I hope you enjoy it. And I hope it's helpful to you. If there's something you see that could be done better, go ahead and open a pull request. As soon as they come in, I go ahead and check them out. So yeah, hope you